So everybody, thank you for coming to the privacy talk again. Here, I'm very great to be honored to invite the guest speaker from Italy, Mr. Marco. So thank you for coming today. I'm very glad to have a talk with you this moment.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So first of all, I'd like to introduce his profile. Marco Scialdone. He's a lawyer and an adjunct professor of law, management of digital content and services at European University of Rome, where he's a deputy coordinator of the LLM in artificial intelligence, law and ethics of emerging technologies, PhD in legal categories and technologies. In 2018, he was appointed by the Italian government in the high-level expert group on artificial intelligence. And in 2019, he was appointed a member of the Italian Permanent Advisory Committee for Copyright. He's currently head of the Litigation and Academic Outreach at Euroconsumers, the main international group of consumer organizations, unit in the Test Ancoop, Test Achats, the Belgian, Out Consumer in Italy, Deco protested in Portugal, OCU Spain, protested in Brazil. So again, I appreciate it to have a call this time, Mr. Marco.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So let's start the first topic. I'm very interested in your activity in Euroconsumer, and I'm also very interested in why did you start to work in digital and consumer field. So could you tell us a brief of your story to come to this field?
Yeah, thank you. Let me say that I've always been passionate about the relationship between law and technology since, I must say, my university days. I remember that the professor who acted as my supervisor for the final dissertation used to say that it was precisely in the challenge posed by the technologies that the resistance of the traditional legal categories could be tested. And indeed, I must say that indeed technology poses a challenge for the jurist because the law usually chases the technology and not the other way around. So there is this struggle between the law and technology, which is really interesting from also an academic point of view. And that's why I've always been passionate about it. And this is something that I also using nowadays in my role in Euroconsumers. Just coming to your questions about Euroconsumers and to explain to our audience exactly what Euroconsumer is about. Euroconsumer is a cluster of consumers organizations based in 4 European countries plus 1 South American country. So we are in Europe, in Belgium, Spain, Italy, and Portugal, and in Brazil, in South America. We represent altogether 1.5 million people, and we are not only an advocacy group. We do not only do advocacy for consumers' rights. We are also publishers. Our magazines are among the most widespread in our 4 European countries, and we have 50 years of experience in the field of testing product and services. So we are a really complex organization with different kind of activities. One of these, for sure, is the advocacy for consumers' rights.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I was impressed when I was first to find it what the Euroconsumer is working on the several project right now. So then, why did you join the Euroconsumers? Then, is there any reason to work well with the project?
Yeah, I joined Euroconsumers last year, so in 2021, in April 2021, in this new role as a head of litigation and academic outreach. So basically, I have 2 different tracks of work in Euroconsumers. One is the more traditional, let me say, for a consumer organization. So just to challenge companies in court. when something bad occurs against the consumers. So we run several class actions in 4 jurisdictions in Europe. For example, now we are running a class action against Apple for planned obsolescence in Europe. We're running another class action against Volkswagen. We had in the past a class action against Facebook when it came to the so-called Cambridge Analytica scandal. It ended with a settlement last year. So this is the most traditional part of the activities. The other one instead, it's what we call the academic outreach, which is not only about the relationship with the academia and university, the research centers, but also with the private stakeholder, with companies who want to run projects about the empowerment of consumers, on spreading the word about the consumers' rights. So we have these 2 different approaches. Sometimes they can seem a little bit contradictory one with the other. But the main message that I would like to pass is that our organization is never against a single company. We are against perhaps some bad behavior sometimes, but we can dialogue with the company for an aspect, chasing them also in court if something bad occurs. So we are not against a company because it's a company, but just in the interest of the consumers.
So thank you. I think your organization is very innovative. Even the consumer organization seems to be a very old-fashioned style, but you do a lot of the things until now. So the one of the interesting, just like you are part of the My Data is My Award. So could you tell us about this award?
Yeah, this is an initiative that started in 2017 when it was launched our My Data is Mine initiative, My Data is Mine declaration. And in that occasion was emphasized that the new scenario offered by the emerging technologies required a different approach than in the past to data protection. In the declaration, there was the belief that to fully grasp the potential offered by the emerging technologies, it was necessary to overcome the struggle between business freedom and fundamental rights of citizen consumers, considering that data has become an essential resource for the economic growth, job creation, advancement of society in general. So to consider data not only as a fundamental right, which of course they are, but also as an economic asset. And to exploit this data, of course, the exploitation of such data must not ignore the correct consumer protection, because our belief is that only by bringing the consumers and the citizen back to the center of the scene, the data economy can really thrive and avoid dangerous degeneration. So that's why we started this journey with the My Data is Mine declaration that this year turns 5 years. And in 2020, we also established an award to support young researchers in the field of data protection with an innovative approach to data protection. So the first edition was in 2020. And this is an award that is given every year at the Web Summit in Lisbon. Web Summit, I think it's one of the most important event in the innovation field in Europe. So we have this important event every year to giving the award to the young researchers who presented the best paper. And by chance, just a couple of weeks ago, we presented our annual call for paper. So the call for paper for 2022 is out in this moment. So also our audience can participate in this. And let me announce one news for this year, which is really important, just because, as I mentioned before, it's 5 years from My Data is Mine declaration. This year, we decided to publish also a book with the papers that we will receive and also other contributions from academics or from other researchers. So this year is an important moment also to consider the path that has been done up till now and how we can evolve this declaration. I think it's time also considering the upcoming pieces of regulation in Europe, to move from the my data is mine approach to what I should call my device is mine approach, because even more the data are connected with the objects that we use every day. So it's time also to shift the attention not only on the data, but also on the objects that included the data that we produce every day.
Yeah, that's a very good opportunity for the young researchers and young academic students to join these hours. There is a great opportunity to share their thoughts in practical explanation through some of the big event. I'm inspired. I'm happy to be a part of it as well. So the next question about, it's a more transition, it's more about the privacy, the data protection related questions. So I think a lot of the consumer organization is try to work on this field, since the data protection law is been very strict, as well as the consumer is becoming they're very serious about their own rights. So is there any change with the consumer organization in Europe under the data protection law recently?
Yeah, for sure. I think that can be a different role for the consumers organization in the future in this field. For example, taking into consideration the recent proposal of the European Commission, the so-called Data Governance Act, and also the other one, the Data Act, we have for the first time a provision regarding the so-called intermediary for data sharing. So there is a clear recognition at legislative level that the data have an economic value, and this value can be maximized through the intervention of professionals. In such perspective, I think that this is a possible field for the consumer organization. So consumer organization can have a future role also as data brokers, because the value of aggregated data is indeed undeniable, but isolated private data is practically worthless. So we need a kind of trusted intermediary to grasp the potential of this value. And I think that the relationship that the consumer organization has with their associates, with their subscribers, so the trust that they put in the consumer organization is the key for having them operating also as data brokers. So I would like to stress the fact that, of course, it's important, like we did in the past, we will do for sure in the future, to go after the companies when there is a violation of personal data, when there is something that compromises the importance and the value of data for the consumers. But it's also important to consider which role the consumer organization can play in the data economy. So not only as a passive role reactive to something bad that happens to the consumers, but also a proactive role. So what we can do to be the main player in the data economy. This is the big challenge for the consumer organization, in my opinion.
I see. I found some information, the recent, just in European government is also try to expect some of any enforcement or support the consumers from the consumer organization. So is there any solution you are organizing at this moment, or just in a development right now?
From the enforcement perspective, I must say that we, with our national organization, for example, in the 4 European countries, we are really active in challenging the data protection authorities when we see something strange in the market, for example. So we are very active on this in our everyday activity. We also are very active in court in this case. The problem that I see right now is that to challenge in court the company and to get a redress for the final consumers, you also have to show the concrete damage that has been suffered. And considering the fact that in Europe, we don't have something similar to the United States punitive damages, this is a great limitation of our legislation. The fact that I cannot sue someone pretending some kind of punitive damages in exchanges, this is a problem for the European legislation on this, and unfortunately this won't be fixed by the upcoming pieces of legislation. So I think that this is a hole in the systems that sooner or later should be fixed.
I see. So in that case, we will be seeing in some of the futures. Maybe it's become a strict data protection law in the future as well. So what could be the expected for the consumer organization in the futures? So you had you got interviews on the Euroconsumer website. So you have any idea of that?
For the future, I mean, I see a great opportunity, for example, in the field of data sharing for the consumer organization. For example, there is this new piece of regulation that was recently presented by the European Commission, the Data Act. The Data Act is about the data produced by the products and services that the consumers use every day. And one thing that is really interesting is this new right to sharing data with third party. That is something similar to the right to portability that is foreseen already in the General Data Protection Regulation in Europe in Article 20, which means that the consumer must have the full control of the data produced by the product, by the object that uses in the everyday life, and also have the power to shift the data from one provider to another in order to get the best offer in the market, for example, for a secondary market in the replacement of part of the object or in repairing the object itself. So what is more and more evident, at least in my opinion, is that there is an interplay between the data and the object, and the market which is around this. It's a market that is interconnected. So if you want to be really free to use your devices, you have to be absolutely in control of the data produced by that devices, because the other way around, you are not fully in control of the object, and you cannot be 100% the owner of the object. You will be just a user of an object which is owned by someone else.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there is many upcoming regulation and becoming a very complexities in a data ecosystem. There is many opportunities the consumer organization to take on, then just to collaborate with the multiple stakeholders. That's a very significant point, and thank you. So then my next question is about copyright. So you are commented on the Euroclub article that is a CJEU decision rated. So could you give us the details of the decisions? How does it impact for the copyrights of the people submitting the perspective of the freedom expression? Do I need rated of that?
Yeah, there was this recent decision by European Court of Justice about Article 17 of the Copyright Directive. Article 17 basically introduced a new liability for content sharing service provider for copyrighted content that are uploaded to their platform by the user. So what we call the user-generated content. In this case, the Article 17 provide that to avoid the liability, providers are obliged to take action to prevent such illegal uploads, also by automated filters. So this position was challenged by Poland because the claim in this case was that this piece of regulation could undermine the freedom of expression of the user. The court recently dismissed the case, saying basically that there are still sufficient guarantees inside the article to guarantee the freedom of expression of the users, because this automated content filter and tools must take into the consideration also the obligation which are inside the Article 17 to guarantee the freedom of expression of the users, to guarantee, for example, the fact that a parody can be uploaded on the site because it's completely legal, it's completely lawful, or other kind of content like this. Of course, these rules, apart from the technical aspects, I think it's very important because it clearly states that the use of automatic filters risks not adequately distinguishing between legal and illegal content. So this is a point of attention that also the court stressed in the decision. The other point is that this burden is on the shoulder of the online content services provider in the directive. So I would like to see in concrete what kind of measures will be enabled by the providers, because it's really difficult for an automated content recognition tools sometimes to distinguish between what is legal and what is illegal in the field of copyright, because several exceptions can be applied for some kind of contents, and for something which is automatic, which is based on an artificial intelligence systems, can be really difficult to distinguish what is legal and what is not. So my concern is that this system indeed enable an overprotection of the right holders. So also avoiding the uploading of content which are perfectly legal, but they are not allowed by the filters.
I see. So in this case, so how we can express our rights for the content sharing, because it's become a very popular, even on the internet, we can share everything that we want. But the problem is that some of the content is taken infringement to others. So that is a very big impact for the users. So from the consumer organization perspective, so what kind of the actions could be useful, that could be effective against those infringement?
Yeah, on this case, for example, we are having some dialogue with some of these companies because we would like to be appointed as trusted flaggers in this case, so to have a preferential path in highlighting to the companies when there is a content which has been removed without any reason, or because the automatic filter just didn't allow to upload the content from scratch, but it was not right in the decision. So I think that also in this case, the consumer organization can play the role of a trusted party with the companies, because of course for the companies really difficult to manage the request that comes one by one by the single users. But if you have a sort of intermediary that can be trusted, and you know that when the request is coming from that trusted party must be considered in advance, maybe this is a solution for the problem. I think also in this, and I think that we will talk about this in a while, the collaboration between industry and consumer organization is vital to guarantee a safer and respectful of consumers' rights digital environment.
Thank you. Yeah, there is a very similar problems here in our countries. Of course, not just only for in Europe, but also the other countries as well. That's gonna be the very challenging, but we should have any solutions to solve the issues. That has been a very interesting theme. So then your initiative is a very awesome, and happy to discuss about this theme. So the next topic about is your new updates. I was joined the conference. There was a great conference there, but I've been joining before. So could you tell us about your new activity, the Consumer Empowerment Project, you had started an announcement to work with the Google. That is a very innovative in a tech company to work in the consumer organizations.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about this this project that we launched just a couple of weeks ago. This Consumer Empowerment Project, if you go online, is cep-project.org. And this is a first concretization of what is foreseen in the new consumer agenda in the European Union, as the European Commissioner renders reminded to us in the launch event. This new agenda requires a multi-stakeholder approach to consumer protection. So this means that we must sit around the same table, consumer organization, industry, and civil society, to find the best way not only to implement the new legislation that is coming in the European Union, especially the so-called Digital Services Act or the Digital Markets Act, but also to go beyond the law. So doing something more that the law requires. The law has to be considered as a platform, but we can build different rights and different paths on that platform. So this is why the dialogue between different stakeholders, which sometimes are on different sides of the barricades, but for once they can sit together and find the solution which is the best one for the consumers. So this is why we are going to do with this platform, the Consumer Empowerment Project, which was started by Euroconsumers and Google, but also other partners already joined the initiative. I like to mention, for example, ECTA, which is an organization including the small and medium telco enterprises in Europe. And this is something which is at the same time surprising, because it's well known that the telcos company and the big techs, they usually stays on different side of the barricades. So for the first time, they sit together at the same table. And this is very important because they are all part of the digital environment. But we also have a civil society organization, think tanks like Prometheus, which is an important think tank based in Italy, Spain, Portugal, and Greece. We have a Science for Democracy, which is an ISBL based in Belgium, which is focused on the digital rights and also the importance of science as a factor that can have an impact in the citizen rights. So we like to create this multi-stakeholder approach, also involving university. For example, one of the projects that is about to start next month is the Consumer Leadership Academy. This is a course that we designed with Bocconi University in Italy and International University of Madrid. We are now talking with other universities in Belgium and Portugal so that we can enlarge the constituency for the academic part of the project. In general, what we want to create with the Consumer Empowerment Project is a place where different stakeholders can dialogue in an open and frank way. And as the claim of the initiative says, we believe in the power of dialogue. So basically, this is what the Consumer Empowerment Project is about.
Yeah, that's very amazing. I'm personally curious. So what drives those stakeholders to come together to work for the future? So do you have any strong visions, or do you have any strong commitment to organize those different stakeholders into the one place?
Yeah, I mean, this didn't start yesterday. This is just another step in a long path that we as Euroconsumers started several years ago with this internal project that is called Working with Global Market Players. So if now it's possible to dialogue with telcos, to dialogue with big tech, for example, just yesterday, one of the director of our organization in Brazil was appointed in the committee on 5G in Brazil. So having this different approach, sitting in the place where traditionally the consumer organization don't sit, this not start from one day to another. This is the fruitful result of planning of a strategy that started at least 5 years ago. And so I'm really confident that we can bring tangible benefits to the end consumers, but also enlarging the importance and the feeling of the importance of the consumer's rights, which is something that sometimes is delegated at the margin of the discussion. We want to bring the consumer back in to the center of the scene on this. And we think that now is the right time to do it, especially in Europe, because now we are really in a turning point, exactly like it was at the beginning of the century when it was established the e-commerce directive that set up the rule for the 20 years from them. Now we are exactly in the same moment. We are defining the rules that will govern, well, the digital environment in Europe for the next 20 years. And only being together in this moment, we can bring tangible benefits to the consumers. Because I mean, ideological crusades against one or the other, I think it's not in the interest of the consumers anymore. We want to dialogue with the main actors of the digital environment, because at the end of the day, these are the actors that enters our everyday life, that in a way or another are the tools that they provide the tools that the consumer use every day. So we have to talk with them to improve these products and services. And our ambition also as a consumer empowerment project is not only talking about consumers' rights, but our real ambition is to establish this partnership to co-design products and services which are consumers friendly by default. So the consumers' rights are incorporated inside the product or the services by default, exactly like the principle of privacy by default or privacy by design in the General Data Protection Regulation in Europe for data protection.
Thank you. Yeah, we can learn a lot from your approach, because it's not easy to consolidate some stakeholders into one place, but a strong vision will enable to all the stakeholders can easy to onboard and create a new innovation. So that's coming, then that's very interesting. Then I'm happy to learn from that. So lastly, could you give us any message from your perspective to the listeners that is very valuable for them to listen from your experience?
The message that I would like to pass in this moment is that it's absolutely important to keep the dialogue open with all the stakeholders. So from a consumer perspective, sometimes it's easier to go after this one or that one because it's your tradition, it's something that you always did in the past. But now it's really the time for a change also in the behavior and in the mind, in the approach of the consumers organization. So the message that I would like to pass for the listeners, of course, is to keep track of the consumer empowerment project and following our initiatives if something interesting came up. But in general, also in this specific field, to have let me say, to believe that the dialogue can produce better results than other traditional way to interplay with the company.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think the dialogue is a very strong power to create a new innovation. So just I learned a lot from this interview. So again, and thank you for coming, Mr. Marco. So yeah, it's a very great to have a talk with you and appreciate it. Thank you for having again these times, and let's keep updating. They're looking forward to seeing the updates to your project.
No, thanks for this opportunity. Thanks for this chance. And once again, we have our My Data is Mine call for papers open. So if you are listening to this interview and you are interested, go to cp-project.com and submit your paper. And maybe you will have a chance to visit Europe, to visit Lisbon and the Web Summit.
Thank you. Yeah, let's meet there. Thank you for having this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.